Hello, my name is Taylah. I am 23. I am an older sister. I am a daughter, and I am a granddaughter. I am a swimming teacher. I am a reader. I am occasionally a public speaker. I was healthy. I was fit and young and strong. And I was someone with much more than a 50% chance of surviving past 25. Now I am someone who is more likely to develop secondary cancers, not be able to grow a baby myself, who has to have routine blood tests, MRIs, echocardiograms, to name a few, and I call myself cancer-free. I hope to one day be a doctor. I've just told you a lot about myself. There are many parts that make up who I am, and I'd like to share some of those parts with you today, especially my personal journey with childhood cancer, how that has shaped me, and how we can change the way that cancer impacts children in the future. My journey with cancer began when I was 14. I was a bubbly Year 9 student, obsessed with boys, gossip, and One Direction. I was more of an academic student, but I also fell in love with sport aerobics. Our team made it to nationals in Queensland that year, and it was one of my best memories from school. I was very close with my family, having two much younger siblings, and my mum, who would do anything and everything for me, which she has proven time and time again. It was coming up to exam time when I started feeling different. I was sleeping in a bit more, I was feeling tired after not walking very far, and standing up for more than just 5 minutes felt taxing on my body. I remember having showers and feeling lightheaded, so much so that I used to lie on the floor afterwards because my body was so exhausted. My mum, obviously concerned, took me to the doctors, where they told me that I was depressed. On a Friday evening in November, my mum and I went to Monash Hospital. They took my bloods and referred me to the Children's Cancer Centre, where they made sure to tell me that it was where children go when there might be something wrong with their body, but it wouldn't be cancer. The following Wednesday afternoon, I had a bone marrow biopsy so that they could see the types of cells my body was producing. My mum dropped me home afterwards. I made myself a cup of melted Cadbury chocolate, watching E! News cover the red carpet, just happy to be home and not have to do anything for the rest of the day. And then my mum came home early. My stomach dropped. She was going to see that I had melted nearly half a whole block of chocolate and was eating it by the spoonful. When she came around the corner, I felt the energy change. She had a tear-stained face and knelt next to me in the lounge room. Had somebody died? Was somebody in hospital? Before she even spoke, I had started crying. Something absolutely horrible had just happened, and what scared me most was that I could tell not even my mum was sure that it would be okay. When she told me I had leukemia, vivid images flashed through my mind. The image of a pale, sick child without hair was the first image that struck me. And then another. Blackness. Death. That Wednesday, my life changed forever. I went upstairs to grab my pillow and we drove straight to the hospital. We arrived at the cancer centre and were ushered into a quiet room where they told us what was going to happen. I only had 2 questions at that point. Am I going to lose my hair? And am I going to die? The treatment for my type of leukemia can last between 2 to 3 years. That's a fair bit longer than most other cancer treatments if you get into remission quickly. My journey took me 2.5 years. The first part of my treatment was the toughest. It involved the most intensive chemotherapy regime to get rid of the cancer, to get me into remission. My mum puts it best. She said I had to grow up overnight. That Wednesday night, I stayed in hospital, preparing for the next day when I would have a portacath inserted into my chest and chemotherapy running through my veins. In the beginning, my mum lied and she told me that it was just Panadol they were giving me. It got me through the first few times until I started feeling sick, reading the names on the fluid bags, watching the nurses come in fully gowned with gloves and masks, and watching them tell my mum to not touch any of my medication because it was highly dangerous and could cause serious health problems, yet that was what they were pumping straight into my heart. Another memory I have involves my nan. I was very close with my grandparents and spent a lot of time with them when I was younger. I remember having my very first shower after my first week or so in hospital. Washing my hair and having it come out in clumps. I think that day, the drain saw more of my tears than shower water. It was time to cut my hair. So, my nan came over. She sat behind me in a dining room chair and combed my hair with her fingers. And she braided my hair one last time. We went to the hairdressers and chopped my long hair to just a short bob, sharing tears with everyone in that hair salon. It was only a few days before Christmas when we got the phone call that I was in remission. One purpose of this lunch is to raise money to find new and better treatments so that children facing cancer won't have to endure these horrible side effects of current therapies. There is one drug in particular which I'd like to see replaced. It's called PEG's asparaginase. This drug commonly causes allergic reactions, and my experience with it was similar to a lot of children at the cancer centre. It wasn't too long into my treatment when I had my second dose of PEGs. I was in the treatment room with one of my favourite nurses, Nat, and my mum. Nat pushed the chemo into my portacath, and Mum was watching me like a hawk. Within a minute, I felt my throat start to close. I looked at my mum and gasped out, "I don't think I can breathe." At that moment, the quiet room became chaotic and I became unconscious. The emergency button was pressed, a code blue was called, doctors and nurses came rushing in, and chemo was replaced with high-dose steroids to try and open up my airways. I only remember parts of this day because I was in and out of consciousness. But my mum remembers it so very clearly. She was the one watching my body shut down right in front of her eyes. And it was one of the most terrifying days of our lives. By the time I had finished my treatment, I was in year 12. How I managed to keep up with school, I honestly don't know. Whilst I only attended about 60% of my classes, school was my escape. It was where I could connect with who I used to be, a part of me that wasn't totally defined by cancer. I had a big party to celebrate the end of my treatment, the end of hell for myself and for my family. My life had changed forever, and I was not the same. My body wasn't the same. It wasn't as fit, and I still didn't look how I wanted to look. I had medical anxieties and still had lots of doctor's appointments. But I did it. I finished school. I got into biomedical science at Monash University. And after a year of full-time study, I decided to travel and live my life to the fullest, because as I knew firsthand, there's me in Egypt. As I knew firsthand, life can change in an instant. I was having the time of my life. One night, when I was in England, I found a lump in my breast. I panicked, called my mum, and I went to St Thomas's Hospital in London, where they told me to keep travelling. It would disappear soon. Nearly a month later, I returned to Australia, and the lump had grown. I genuinely believed that it was not going to be cancer. How could it be that? It's happened to me once. I did my almost 3 years and I had just got my life back. The lump was biopsied, and a few days later, the doctor told me that it was my leukemia in the tumour. I was in shock. This was not possible. How could this be possible? I did everything right. I went through all of that torture. For what? In the hardest moments, I promised myself that I wouldn't have to do this ever again. I just needed to go through it now, and then it would be over. In that moment, I wished that I could turn back time, just by a few weeks, back to travelling and being free, finally. Instead, I was about to be dragged back into the storm, this time with less than half the chance of making it out the other side. So there I was, a week short of being 5 years in remission, and I was back to square one. The second time round was similar and different. I was fortunate to have a lot of my treatment at Monash Children's Cancer Centre with familiar doctors and nurses. However, this time I was an adult, which meant staying overnight in adult wards. No more anaesthetics for procedures like lumbar punctures, and my chances of survival were significantly less. This also meant that I was reliving my trauma. I knew what I was in for. And this time, there was radiation, because this time I had a tumour. My relapse happened at the end of 2019, meaning that a lot of my treatment took place during COVID lockdowns. And as a barely adult patient, I had to do most things all by myself. I felt so alone in those moments. I felt sad and I felt scared. I felt sad that this was my reality again. Sad that my body had betrayed me again. Sad that the treatment that I was having, whilst it would save my life now, was likely to cause secondary cancers later on. I finished my second battle with cancer in January of 2021, and since then, I have not had to fight my cancer again. But my cancer journey hasn't stopped there. Things don't just go back to normal. I've had to rebuild my body and my life. It's been difficult to get back into sport and fitness. Relationships have shifted, changed, and are forever affected. A lot of my time is still dedicated to maintaining my health. Doctor's appointments, blood tests, scans are all still routine. And I worry about my fertility. I'd like to take a moment to talk about somebody else who was part of my journey and had her own journey. Her name is Alex. Alex was 1 year younger than me. She actually went to the same school as me and was in my house at school. Alex was bright, kind, and funny. She liked playing her guitar and playing football. Whilst I was battling leukemia the first time, Alex was diagnosed with Ewing's sarcoma. Alex and I were both treated at Monash Hospital and saw each other at the cancer centre or at school. The conversations we had at times were brief, but at others were about things that none of our peers could ever understand. By the time I finished my second battle with cancer, Alex was still fighting hers. She'd been living in that hell for more than 4 years straight. Last year, Alex passed away. I am not special because I survived. There is nothing more worthy about me compared to Alex or any of the children that I met who are not here today. I was so incredibly lucky that my body responded to the toxic treatment. It is not fair that theirs didn't, and it is not okay. It's not okay that so many children are dying, relapsing, and enduring these treatments that are not curing them and that are permanently damaging their bodies, minds, and spirits. I plan to study medicine. Once I finish my degree, if I'm ever in a room with a 14-year-old girl whose body is betraying her, like mine did, I want to be able to tell her that she will not lose her hair, that I can give her medicine that means that she can still dance and play sport and go out with her friends, and that the drugs won't make her nauseous and that they will help with her pain. That after her treatment, she will not have to get invasive scans for the rest of her life. I want to be able to tell her that the friends that she makes at the cancer centre are going to be okay and grow old alongside her, happy and healthy. That is not my reality, but it can be for the next Taylah or Alex. I hope that in 5 years' time, I'll be standing here with my medical degree, able to prescribe medicines that will cure children with cancer. Thank you for listening to my story, and let's make a difference today.